Okay, today I'm going to start by talking about some of the ideas about imagination and how to build this idea of sort of how to see things in the ether, or how to see things through your mind, remote viewing, and things of that nature. So a lot I've heard this advice a lot: fake it till you make it, on this particular occult topic of how to know um, if like how to gain this ability to see things in the ether. And I think on one hand this is true because you don't really know what you're seeing or what you're doing. Actually, what's happening is psychic input is coming in at a very low resolution, and I find a lot of people conflate what they see with popular films or something, or like pop culture things, especially like The Matrix. um I've known a few people that are a little more on the schizo end of the occult, doing like one guy that taught me a lot. He would talk about things in terms of Dragon Ball Z, which I had never seen at that point. Um, like a little bit at other people's houses, like once or twice. I saw it on the TV first for a minute, but I didn't know anything about it. But it was really funny because actually I got into the occult. Um, Well, I was already really interested, but I think I already had a lot of knowledge, and then I watched JoJo's Bizarre Adventures, and I was like, "Oh, okay." Like because the way it's shown in JoJo, it's quite fantastic in JoJo, but essentially, like a lot of the things it's talking about are pretty spot on, especially what they say. I mean, like Prana, for example, they have Hamon. Prana can't, you know, launch a rocket at someone and kill them or something. But yeah, and they had a whole like 2 seasons about tarot cards, or 2 arcs really. So, and it was funny that my uh sort of someone who was sort of a mentor to me also was big into anime like that. So yeah, but I think when you start and you just imagine things, well, one big secret of the occult is you figure out there's no such thing as imagination compared to what you would like think. Basically, it's like you're an antenna and you pick up on things that are real, and then imagination. There's some, you know, there's some power of simulation and synthesis in the mind, so I guess you could call that imagination. But I think a lot of the experience of um, especially that very powerful vision, that creative vision. It's not really creative; it's more sensing something that's not really here. So a lot of shows that are very imaginative, or movies, or whatever, books, it's someone is seeing or sensing something from the distant past, or um, another planet or something of that nature. So that's a good thing to know. And when you know that, then it kind of takes the pressure off of am I imagining something, because once you get a certain amount far, you realize that like okay, I'll say it this way, like through an anecdote, or not really an anecdote, but my experience. So when I was first into the occult, kind of went overboard and was like taking every little experience way too seriously, and so then I really backed it down, and I really got a lot more careful about how to interpret a lot of the things that I saw or experienced on the astral plane, or where are in dreams, or with energy work, things like that. Um, with my subtle senses, even as I in my waking life. Um, and especially, I had some really serious experiences. Like, as soon as I opened my third eye, I saw a shit ton of demons, and they really put me through it. And at first I just saw one, and then I fought back, and then he came back with his friends, pretty much just like the Bible says. Like, if you throw out a demon, you should clean your vessel. You should, you know, shape up your life, because otherwise he'll come back with 7 friends. That's what it says. The demon will dwell in some waterless place and come back with 7 friends. And yeah, that happened to me, except it wasn't so much they came back with friends that weren't there before. It was more like, imagine a ton of demons are feeding off of me, and then one of them is sort of policing me to make sure I don't like wake up and stop them from feeding. And then he just woke up the others, because the demon had a shit ton of eyes all around his body. And what I figured out was that that basically every single eye represented a different demon that was draining me, because then suddenly I was surrounded by like hundreds of demons, and he only had like one eye. So that was interesting, and that could be just the way I'm like being shown it through my own consciousness, that's informing me of what it looks like. But the it's been pretty consistent. I even saw this animated film, this animated like anime film of the Ramayana story, and when they showed the demons that in that movie, it was the same thing. It shows clouds full of eyes, and then the eyes turn into smaller demons. And I was like, oh, that's what I saw, except it wasn't a cloud, it was a big mushy looking man. So even similar even then, you know. um so that experience sort of caused me to then be a little bit too hype over the whole thing, because literally I needed to learn magic fast to save my bacon, you know. So to save my ass. And so what I found out later, though, is that a lot of the things I was taking too seriously, I was actually sort of right about them, but I didn't understand. This is part of the alchemical process of like, you sort of go into fairyland, then you sort of you go through like a bunch of shit, like a dark night of the soul. You go through a really bad time of all kinds of suffering, and then you move on to when you sort of take the mundane and the magical and marry them together, the rubido stage. So I got to that point, and then I realized, oh hey, like a lot of the stuff that, because during the bad part, the dark night of the soul or whatever, the negrito stage, I think, the blackening, I started to think like, I wasn't questioning if any of it was real, because I've had so many, you know, really crazy experiences that I wouldn't really question at this point. But I started to question like a lot of little things, if my experience was good in one way or another. I found out actually a lot of the stuff, like a lot of the stuff that was happening to me like 3 years ago, or a lot of the experiences I was having, they're following up now, and some of them are processes that are completing. And I misinterpreted some things as well. So, but just to say, like, I think there's a lot of people that are, especially like when I talk to people with schizophrenia, I have a bit of a fascination in people like that. I think a lot of times they'll have delusions, and you know, like an atypical schizophrenic delusion almost of one version or another. And the problem is the schizophrenic person feels, it's almost like they feel no desire to then harmonize that with reality. So actually the things they say are correct, right? But they've sort of taken the little grain of psychic input, the inspiration, the intuition, the thing a spirit actually whispered to them. They took that, this great, insight into their situation, and then they kept thinking and thinking and adding, and it's like a game of telephone. And so, because they don't, people with schizophrenia typically don't have. Well, the thing is, there's no training for people like that these days, and I'm not saying that schizophrenia shouldn't be treated or anything, but there's no training of like shamanism or the occult or anything, mysticism. Uh, you know, a lot of like basic practices that can really upgrade someone like that. There just aren't systems for that. Like, once upon a time, you would just go away with like some monks or some shamans or whatever, and they would teach you how to use your, I'll say, powers, your sensitivities. Sensitivity is power. Sensitivity is the power, um, and that's a good thing to know. So when someone tells you that you're too sensitive, you should probably just, get away from that person because they don't know what they're talking about. Yeah. So people that are sensitive psychically to the point of like what we would call schizophrenia, people in the modern day aren't trained, and so people will have this like psychic input, and they won't know what to do with it. So they'll just think like, it seems like in my experience, I've seen people will think logically, like they'll have something, uh, and I think everyone knows about this sort of insane person intuition, how they're like strangely perceptive about things. But a lot of the times their actions are just complete nonsense. Um, and it varies a lot. I've seen some people with schizophrenia that are very functional, usually on pills, but very functional, very in touch with their intuition, just very with it, you know. Maybe I don't expect they're the sort of person that would be able to hold a job, but they they can handle and are mature. They can handle these things and be mature with them, sometimes. Especially, I think, at least, I always had some kind of sensitivity to things, and learning about the occult definitely helped because that was the call. Um, but yeah, so speaking of schizophrenia, relating to how the imagination, quote unquote, is the door to like astral projection and a lot of and energy work and a lot of these powers. But you're not imagining. Actually, the mind is actuating something in the ether. That's what imagination is doing. You're working in actual ethereal spiritual space. Um, Ethereal space. I shouldn't say spirit exactly. So that's a tough one because I think if someone's a beginner, everything that's not matter is spirit. But I think farther down the line, that doesn't make sense to say anymore. Uh, Probably it doesn't make sense to say at all. Yeah, it's ether, and then spirit is like subtle compared to that, and spirit is really the sort of the spiritual plane isn't even that easy to sense. And I've only, with all the like magical stuff I've done, I've as far as spiritual experiences, like just feeling good or just feeling like I'm on the right path or just knowing things are a certain way, or intuition, I've had that experience a lot. But having like profound spiritual experiences, I haven't experienced that except for a few times. So it's pretty it, it, it's a pretty complex thing. So I think imagination is a little bit less valuable for the absolute spiritual stuff. Or not less valuable, but I mean, if you have experience like on the ethereal plane, I think that opens you up to be able to receive more spiritual experiences. But I think it wouldn't matter. I think if some being wants to give you a spiritual experience, uh, quote unquote God, then it's gonna happen. So I think maybe you have to be awake to get that. I don't know exactly. Don't want to be too like nailing things down, but I know the things I know, Uh I think that's valuable. I think relying on something someone else told you that you're not sure of, but you know, I think getting on the internet and talking about things like that, um I think you should talk about what you know. Anyways, uh so, so in the occult, I think that criticism can be apt. Oh, someone wrote this book, and I don't know. Anyways, yeah. So I think if someone is just starting out in the occult, trust your imagination. Have temperance, and realize there's some complication. There's some the experiences are complicated. It's not like, oh, I see. My best friend is actually you know a gray alien, and that I watch on YouTube. I saw that gray aliens are like the bad guys, so gonna I don't know. So I'm gonna abandon this friend or something, you know. Um, I think, but even then, maybe, yeah, sure, why not. I think though there's a lot of work that needs to be done about piecing together this or that, uh, what things might mean, if there are these big factions in the world, these big occult factions, whether it be secret societies or so-called star nations like alien races from different worlds and such, or if it's like jinn, angels, fallen angels, Astros, all kinds of factions like that. You know, it takes some exploring to know. So yeah, so I would say go with the imagination, but maybe seek maturity and seek system, maybe do some ceremonial magic. Uh, Working with deities can accelerate you a lot because they can open sort of the floodgates, and you can see a lot more. But ceremonial magic, like I said, I guess you could just get really good at astral projection and dream work and find out some stuff. Uh, that's really time consuming. That's like making magic your job. For me, like, I would rather just oh, you can do scrying is one thing. Like, you can get a black bowl and you can just spend time looking at the black bowl, and then images will come to you over time. That's a great way to, like, and if you just meditate on that and try and refine that skill, then you can tell what you see a lot. Like, there's a lot of people in the occult in my opinion, aren't very good at the occult, and the way you can tell is that, or well, I'm saying there's a lot of people that I'll say it this way: there's a lot of people that'll talk to like some deity, and the deity will constantly be in a different form to show them, and I think that's a little bit of a hallmark that the person isn't super like good at magic, or isn't super good at like astral projection, or things like that, or isn't that good at like seeing things for what they are, right? So because the other being has control in that situation, and I don't know if it's about how powerful like how strong and complicated and developed over lifetimes the energy body is. I don't know if it's about just having the sight, and it's just a particular gift of discernment or what. But if the being is always in a different form, to me that sounds like the being, the spirit, the daemon, the whatever, has control of that interaction, and you're coming into it like, who knows, um I mean, like when people would do Ars Goetia, they would actually confine the goetic being, so called, to a triangle. So they would close themselves in a circle, and they would close the so called demon in a triangle, and then the demon would also always be in different forms. Um, to me, that always sounded really weird, and I just, when I talk to a being, they basically always show themselves in the same form or very similar, like similar iterations of the same thing. Like, okay, maybe Kali Ma comes with a wreath of heads one time. Maybe one time she's just a lady that's like super black. That's like, yeah. So you know, so that's been my experience. I feel like they're showing me a more true form. I think that a lot of times, and I've had experiences of seeing like Parashiva for a moment or Parashakti or something like that, and that's different. But it's almost to the point it's like a different being, like the higher self of that being, like how we have a higher self, super consciousness. It's like they're showing me their super consciousness, and as a much much more powerful being, their super consciousness is also much much more powerful. That just came to me now, so there's some uh good old unverified personal gnosis for you right on the spot. Well, that's why I do it. That's why I do this stuff. The Yeah, so I think I'm seeing more of their like quote unquote true form. I hear a lot of times of people in the occult will be like in the magical community or whatever, will be like oh, these beings are these ineffable things, these energy forces out in space or whatever, or intrinsic to nature entirely, as if like a dimension of nature, like I have 3 dimensions now, like length, width, height. It's like if height were, it's as if height is Shiva, length is Brahma, width is Vishnu, or something, or as if past, present, future. Past is, Diana, present is Hakate, and future is Selene. Um, I kind of disagree with that. I think that out of these concepts, are these concepts sort of channel? There's an energy to them, and the being is sort of uh, just what I've felt. What you know, I, I've dealt with these sorts of things a lot, and I've really like wanted to learn and come to them wanting to learn, and they've taught me. But other people have different opinions about this. But my opinion, you know, from my experience and what I've felt, what I've sensed, what I've been around, is that basically, sort of out of these let's say elements, there's sort of an energy to that. There's an energy coming through from that, and these beings are just sort of lenses for that energy. Um, I suppose there maybe some of them, these energies actually expand out of them. That's what some of the texts say, but I couldn't tell you that for certain. I I don't want to say like totally doubt that, but like there's a lot of gods for the same thing, and some of them are more powerful than others. So like for example, Morgan is related to Saturn, and then of course Shawnee Dave or literally Saturn is related to Saturn. Like to me, I would say Shawnee Dave slash Saturn is like having sort of a prime position, like a prime sort of, that's sort of like the big director of the energies of the planets, of that planet. And then like maybe the Morgan is like deputized to have some lesser power out of Saturn, or maybe Saturn, her connection to Saturn is incidental, and it's just one facet of her being. I mean, who knows about the activities of the gods? Maybe the Morgan did something and Saturn liked it and was like, hey, now uh, you have some Saturnine powers, kind of like Hanuman when he saved the planets. But you know, I've considered a lot of these different things. But yeah, to me, I think that just different gods have different daemons have different sort of different characteristics, different domains, and they all kind of overlap. I think, of course, these things are always going to be, maybe not always, but these things are a bit mysterious. They're certainly very complex, and there's a lot to know. Certainly, I don't think the Morgan and Shawnee Dave are the same being at all. I don't know. I've interacted with both of them, and they feel very, very different. And uh, to the point that at a primordial level, the energy, primordial level, very much intrinsic, very like down to their vital energy. What it is, I won't say primordial energy. That's too heavy of a term. I want to be somewhat, maybe not precise about it, but but their vital energies are very different, uh, as I experienced them. So maybe someone's better at this sort of thing than me and has a different opinion. I don't know. That's my opinion. That's what I came across. This is one of those things in the occult where there's a lot of opinions, and that's mine. So I will say I stand by my idea that people that constantly see it being as some different thing probably have some. Their astral projection is probably fairly low resolution. So, um, and when I mentioned the Morgan, uh, the same thing applies for like, I think Lilith, uh, Lucifer, and Astarte all kind of are related to the planet Venus. Astarte being analog to Aphrodite, which I believe that like Aphrodite, Astarte, and Anna, just looking at some of the like old iconography from like Sumeria or wherever, I don't I think it was Sumeria, where uh you see it. I think it's an Anna. It's either an Anna or a Astarte, and right next to her is like a lioness. And uh there's something else too there that made me think this, which is that she's actually similar to Shakti. So that's pretty cool. Um yeah, I want to look into that, especially because it kind of seems like Inanna, Astarte, Ishtar are all like they're different iterations of the same goddess. Kind of like how like you have Durga, you have Dhumavati, you have Chandike, you have Kamakaya, Tripura Sundari. I could just go on and on with the different forms of Shakti. There's so many of them. So many forms of Shakti. It's pretty cool though. It's a cool thing. So I'm looking into it now, like if they're just the same. So yeah. So and note, like, if you're getting into this stuff, just trust your imagination and work it out, but don't trust it too much, kind of thing. Get precise, I guess. So hopefully this is helpful.